Exercise 17-19, ability to pay liabilities. Big, beautiful Photoshop has asked you to determine whether the company's ability to pay current liabilities and total liabilities improved or deteriorated, which means gotten worse, during 2024. To answer this question, you gather the following data. So our first task is to calculate the current ratios for both 2024 and 2023. First, we have to figure out what the formula is. So remember, current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. So we're going to compute the current ratio for 2024, 2023. Round your answers to the 2 decimal places. All right. So we have to figure out which of these accounts are current assets. So that includes cash, short-term investments, net AR, and merchandise inventory. So if we take 58,000, add 34,000, 140,000, 217,000, we get total current assets down here of 449,000. Current liabilities, the number on the bottom, we get that from here. And then we do the math, we get 1.56. So that means for every dollar of the thing on the bottom, in other words, for every dollar of liabilities, they have $1.56 of current assets. 1.56. And then we need to do 2023, so we're going to take 47,000 plus 0 plus 124,000 plus 272,000. Divide by 205,000, we get 2.16. And again, we're rounding to 2 decimal places. Next, we want to compute the cash ratio. So the formula for cash ratio is cash plus cash equivalents divided by total current liabilities. Now, cash equivalents are highly liquid investments that can be converted into cash in 3 months or less. So short-term investments are not cash equivalents. So let me show you the solution down here. Okay, so let me check my answer. So for 2024, we're going to take cash, 58,000, divided by total current liabilities, 288,000. We get 0.20 because it says round to 2 decimal places. 0.20. And then for the next year, for 2023, we get 47,000 plus $0 of cash equivalents, and divide by $205,000 of total current liabilities gives us 0.23. So what this cash ratio is trying to do is trying to determine the company's ability to meet its short-term obligations. So basically it's trying to see our ability to pay our total current liabilities. What do we pay our total current liabilities with? It's with cash usually and cash equivalents. So when we talk about the current ratio, it's not a really realistic way to compare our ability to pay current liabilities because our total current assets includes inventory, and it's not realistic to sell your inventory really quickly to be able to pay your short-term liabilities. Check our answer. There we go. Next, we got our acid test ratio. So the acid test ratio, what it does is it's trying to determine how we can pay our current liabilities. But this time, it's going to include short-term investments and net current receivables. So cash plus short-term investments plus net current receivables. So cash, short-term investments plus net accounts receivable divided by total current liabilities. So for 2024, we're going to take 58,000. Let me show you the calculation down here at the bottom. We're going to take 58,000 plus 34,000 plus the net accounts receivable. Now you might be wondering, well, how can you use accounts receivable to pay your current debt? Well, it's actually pretty easy to sell your account receivable to a company. You're not going to get 100% for it, of course, and you can sell it pretty quickly. This is called factoring, and it's pretty common practice. Let someone else deal with collecting your receivables. And then divide by total current liability. So that gives us 0.81 for 2024. And then for 2023, we've got 47,000 of cash, 0 short-term investments, net AR of 124,000 divided by total current liabilities of 205,000 gives us 0.83. Next, we want to compute the debt ratio. So the debt ratio is total liabilities divided by total assets. So it's trying to compare, or trying to figure out how much of your assets are financed by someone else. In other words, are owned by someone else. So to do that, here's our calculation down here. Total liabilities is the current liabilities, 288 plus 40 for long-term notes payable. So that gives us this on top divided by total assets of 530,000. And then notice it says round your answer to 0.1%. Do not enter the percent sign because it has a percent sign here. And for example, enter 10.1% as 10.1. So I'll do this one with you in case you're not strong with the calculator and the percentages. So to do this for 2024, we're going to take 288,000 plus 40,000 gives us 328,000 on top divided by 530,000 equals, now we have to convert that to a decimal, so we multiply by 100. And then this says round your answer to 0.1%, so x dot x. So this becomes 61.9%. And then for 2023, we're going to take total liabilities, which is 205,000 plus 50,000. So that's 255,000 on top, divided by your total assets of 565. So 255,000 divided by 565,000 equals 45.1. Multiply by 100 to get the 45.1. And then we're going to calculate our debt ratio. So our debt ratio is total liabilities, our debt to equity ratios. Our formula for that is total liabilities divided by total equity, just like it says. Debt, which is liabilities, to equity. So for 2024, our debt is the current liabilities plus long-term liabilities, so 288 plus 40 on top. And then notice we don't have equity listed on here, but we can calculate the equity. Now remember, the accounting equation is total assets equals total liabilities, which is the 288 plus 40, plus equity. So if we just take the total assets minus our total liabilities, that gives us our equity. So that's what we're doing here. Total equity is total assets minus total liabilities. So total assets is 530 right here. And we're going to subtract the total liabilities, which is the number on top, 288 plus 40. And then when you crunch the numbers, we get 1.62. And then for 2023, our total liabilities are the current liabilities at 205 plus the 50,000 of long-term notes payable, so that's 255,000. And then for the bottom, we're going to take the total assets, 565,000, minus the liabilities. So the equity is the 565 minus the 255. We crunch the numbers, we get 0.82 because it says round to 2 decimal places. Now we're going to analyze our results. So first we're going to look at the current ratio and then asset test ratio. Let's compare the current ratio versus the industry average. Industry average is 0.6. So current ratio is way up here. So ours is 1.56. The industry average is 0.6, so there's a huge difference. Now remember, total current ratio, or the current ratio is total current assets divided by current liabilities. So do we want high or low? Well, you want a huge number of current assets, like cash, and low current liabilities. So you want this number to be big. So if ours is 1.56 and the industry average is 0.6, our asset test ratio is relatively high. But let's also, I should say our current ratio. So let's check the asset test ratio. So the asset test, 0.46 is the industry average. Let's check ours. So ours is 0.81. The industry average is 0.46. So let's see if we want high or low. So on top we have assets, different types of assets. On the bottom we want a low number, current liabilities. So we want a high number. So ours is 0.81. The industry average is 0.46. So again, ours is relatively high. So the company appears to have the liquidity to pay its liabilities. Now let's look at the debt to equity ratio and the debt ratio, and our options are at average levels, and then we have extremely low or relatively high. Now notice this one says extremely low. So let's look at the debt to equity ratio. The debt to equity ratio for the industry average is 2.23. Now remember, the debt to equity ratio is right here, liabilities divided by equity. So we want the number on top to be low and the number on bottom to be big. So the lower the better. So the industry average is 2.23, ours is 1.62. So ours is it low, extremely low, or at average levels? So I would say that's more closer to average. It's not high. So let's stick with at average levels. But we'll also look at the other one. The other one we're looking at is debt ratio. So the debt ratio is total liabilities divided by total assets. So again, we want low. Ours is 61.9. The debt ratio for the industry average is 69. So 69% versus 61.9. Ours is a little bit lower, but not by much. So let's go with at average levels, because it's not extremely low. And it's definitely not relatively high. So the company is not overloaded with debt. And that's it.